In the first part of Ricardo's theory, we covered distribution of income among landlords, capitalists, and workers. Then we discussed about the key assumptions of Ricardo's economic development model and Ricardo's single commodity model and its key assumptions. We also discussed the concept of marginal land and how rent is the difference of the surplus produce on fertile land over the marginal land. And we also saw through a diagram how the stationary state is reached and profits become zero at the stationary state. A quick recap. What is a stationary state? As population increases and cultivation expands to lesser fertile lands, rents increase. When rents and wages eat into profits, to the extent that profits reach zero, we say that the economy has entered stationary state. Now, we have seen rent as surplus production on fertile land over marginal land. We have seen rent as the surplus production on fertile land over the marginal land. That's what we saw, right? Through that example where we had 3 tracts of land where A was the most fertile and land C was the marginal or least fertile land. Now that was total rent. We can see rent also as per unit of labor. See this diagram. Here we have 2 lines respectively representing average product of labor denoted by APL and marginal product of labor MPL. Rent per unit of labor is taken as the difference between APL and MPL. When we employ OA units of labor, x-axis here represents number of units of labor and y-axis represents total output in con. So when we employ OA units of labor, our total production is AB, which is equal to OC. So the total output is represented by this rectangular area OABC. Right? With me? Okay. Now, we saw that rent is equal to APL minus MPL, that is average product of labor minus marginal product of labor. When OA units of labor is employed, marginal product of labor is seen as equal to AD. Here, this line intersects MPL at point D, so AD is the marginal product of labor, MPL. Therefore, rent is AB minus AD is equal to BD, where AB is equal to APL and AD is equal to MPL. Now BD is equal to CE, so total rent is equal to the area CEDB, right? Let us mark this rent. Now here, this is the wage line, the subsistence wage line. So this area OWFA represents total wages paid when OA number of laborers or workers are employed. The terms labor and worker are used interchangeably, so don't get confused. So out of the total produce OABC using OA units of labor, OWFA is equal to total wages, CEDB is equal to total rents. This remaining part, area WEDF, is equal to what? Profits. That is the residual profits after deducting rents and wages from the total produce OABC. If employment of labor is increased from OA to OH, that is now we are employing OH units of labor, earlier we were employing OA units of labor, then what happens? Total produce becomes OHJK, see this area here. Rent becomes this area KWGJ. KWGJ is the rent and wages equal to OWGH. That is, there are no residual profits now. Profits have become zero here and this is the stationary state. This is the stationary state. Now that you have understood, quick question. Why has this happened? Profits hitting zero. Because now to support a growing population, cultivation has entered lesser fertile lands, where there are diminishing returns on agricultural productivity. Rents here increase and squeeze out the profits completely, as we studied in the previous lecture also. Now coming to Ricardo's two commodity model. The single commodity model was considered too unrealistic because in real economies, many goods are produced. Also, agriculture is not the only sector in the economy and labor doesn't consume only corn. So Ricardo expanded the model to include two commodities, where one was corn through agriculture and other was a manufactured good from industry. He made important observations regarding economic growth using his two commodity model. He begins with some key assumptions like at least two factors of production are used, namely labor and capital. Agriculture sector produces wage goods such as corn and is subject to diminishing returns, while industrial sector produces non-wage goods and is not subject to diminishing returns, rather has constant returns to scale. So the industrial sector has constant returns to scale while the agricultural sector has diminishing returns, as was assumed earlier also. And what are wage goods? These are those goods which are used to pay wages to workers, that is, in terms of corn. It also means that corn prices affect wages. In the single commodity model also, he was using corn as a wage good. Here also he is using corn as a wage good. For both the sectors, agricultural and industrial sector. He is paying the wages in corn. He also assumes that the MPC of workers is unity. The marginal propensity to consume of workers is unity and that of capitalists is near zero, which means that workers consume or spend the whole of their wages and are unable to save. Why? Because they are being given subsistence wages, barely enough for a day-to-day expense survival. While on the other hand, he calls capitalists as thrifty spenders, who save and invest and accumulate capital. He also assumes that a fixed wage fund is obtained from agricultural production. That is, corn produced from the agricultural sector is used to pay wages in both agricultural and industrial sectors, as we also discussed above. Wages of workers in both sectors is still corn. Then he reiterates that rent increases in agricultural sector only due to land scarcity and diminishing returns. Now, through this model, he made some observations. So, what were his observations? When a given amount of labor and capital are employed in agriculture, they produce enough agricultural output so that part of the produce is used in agricultural sector itself and part of it in industrial sector. So L and K are the factors of production used in agriculture and Y here is the total output. Then part of this Y is used in agricultural sector and rest of it in the manufacturing or industrial sector. In agricultural sector, it is used to pay wages and rents. And in industrial sector, it is used as a form of capital. He says that capitalists utilize this capital in the most profitable way. Capitalists are frugal or thrifty spenders anyway, so they save, invest and accumulate capital. Then he finds that profits are generated in both sectors and further capital is formed. So capital accumulation is happening. These capital accumulations lead to growth in the economy. Circulating capital increases and thereby the demand for labor increases. Once full employment is reached, he says, any addition to capital stock raises the wage levels temporarily over the subsistence levels. Temporarily because, according to Ricardian theory, when wages rise above subsistence levels, worker population multiplies. Right? We saw that when we were discussing iron law wages also. Then profits begin to contract under high wages and rents. And ultimately economy comes to a halt in a stationary state when wages fall again, as we have studied so far. So this is all about the Ricardian theory of economic development and growth. If there is any doubt about a particular concept, I would suggest to replay that part of the video to get more clarity. Now let's come to the criticisms of the theory. Criticisms, as we know, can easily be derived from the assumptions. So Ricardo assumes agriculture as the main driver of growth in the economy, where he sees economic progress as expansion of cultivation to greater lands with diminishing returns, that is ranking the lands in fertility. If we see through the lens of a modern economic overview, we realize that economic progress is a multi-sector growth phenomenon, including industry, manufacturing, services, foreign trade, imports and exports that go along with agriculture, rather than agriculture being an exclusionist growth driver. He lays too much emphasis on land scarcity and its linkage to diminishing returns in agriculture, when he says that population increase leads to cultivation expanding to marginal land, due to which rents rise and profits are squeezed out. In reality, technology interventions can improve crop yields and reduce land dependence. So output can be expanded even without needing more land. He is stuck at and in fact carries forward the Malthusian concept of subsistence level wages for workers. While modern economists, on the other hand, do not concur with this thought. They think that wages rise with productivity, better education, skill development, under trade union pressures, and also through policy reforms such as the minimum wage bill, and hence they are not fixed at subsistence levels. He also links the fall in profits to the rise in rents alone, which may not be true. He says that profits fall only because rents eat into them. This is not really true, because profits can also fall due to many other factors: spending on innovation and R&D, competition, governmental regulations, and a whole host of other reasons. He talks about technology being static. That is, technology does not lead to any productivity improvement over time. This is clearly not true, as technology and R&D play a great role in enhancing productivity, not only in agricultural sector but also in other sectors such as manufacturing and services. There can be many other criticisms based on the assumptions he made and his related theories, but let's end the criticism bit here. I think these many points are enough to fetch good marks. We can conclude by saying that he laid a good ground for modern economists to base their theories on and enrich economic thought as we see in modern economics today. So this is all about David Ricardo's theory of economic development. We'll catch up in the next lecture. Thank you very much.